Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. I hope you like this video. Now, if you want to know who I think the Mets should try to target to be the next manager of the Mets, stay to the end of this video, but you have to subscribe first to find out who it is. But yeah, the big news here in New York City is that the Mets have fired Buck Showalter. That is not something I really want to talk about, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about it. I mean, it's not something that I really wanted to have happen. Obviously, we wanted to go see our team go to postseason. And the Mets, basically, the new guy coming in wanted to let Buck go. He wants to bring in his own guy. That's what Steve Cohen said after the game. He did took some questions, told the media what he wanted to, talk about in terms of the who's coming in. Dave Stern's going to be announced as the new president of baseball operations tomorrow. He's going to be running this team. I'll have a video on him tomorrow in the evening or night, or whatever time I get back here to the hut. But it's sad because with this particular manager, Buck Showalter, because this was a manager that I really wanted him to manage this team 2 years ago when they fired Luis Rojas. I thought he was the perfect manager for this team, and he turned out to be terrific the first year. I mean, they won 101 games last year. That's the second most they've ever won as a franchise, and that a lot of it is due to him. All the work that he put in, the work that his staff put in. He did such a great job the first year. I did not think they would win 101 games. I thought they would get the postseason. They would win probably 87, 88, 89 wins. But he did such an unbelievable job last year with this team. Now, obviously, September was a mess. They finished 2 games above 500. Obviously, not being able to beat the Braves in that series in Atlanta. Not being able to win the series against the Padres. I don't blame that on him. The players did not come through in those spots. But going into the off season, and as the season began, I felt like something isn't quite right with this team. And I felt that this was a team that was, I don't know if they weren't put together properly, or there was an issue with the manager. But I also felt that with the manager, as an aside, that the intensity that he brought last year wasn't there this year. I didn't really care for the fact that he wasn't like being tougher against the opponent. The opponents were constantly hitting the Mets like crazy, specifically the Braves, and they were taking great advantages of the Mets and all these teams and hitting the Mets and hitting, and I had a major problem with him not being able to sort of stand up for his team. Like a lot of that fire that he had last year was very much fizzled. And I felt that they needed to make a change. Now, in June, Steve Cohen came out and said, look, I'm not going to fire Buck. He's got a contract to 2024. He's not going anywhere. But I felt that they needed a swift kick in the you-know-what to get them going. And it just didn't work, And obviously, it's not Buck's fault that the pitching staff was constantly giving up runs in the first inning. It wasn't Buck's fault that this team wasn't scoring runs early in games. They were constantly falling behind in games. They had one of the worst records in the history of this club. And on the road, they were 27 games on the 500. Can you believe that? That is unbelievable. That's nuts. To be 27 games on the 500 on the road. That is almost difficult and impossible to believe. But here we are. It's going to be if they get this other game from the Marlins, it'll be 75 and 87. You could not have found a bigger disappointment this year. Now, you don't ever want to put the blame on the manager, especially if he's a good manager. And he's been a very good manager in his career. But I felt that he needed to go back in June, July, and they didn't do that. Just to change the voice in the room. Now, the players, they all said the right things, but if you watched it, you knew there was an issue. You knew there was a problem in this clubhouse. And we've seen little things come out, this sort of back and forth between Verlander and Scherzer. Obviously, this sort of rivalry, this sort of back and forth that they had in Detroit, it kind of popped up again during the season. That's something he should have addressed. He didn't. It didn't seem like he did that. This ball club, I didn't think he did a very good job managing the team on the field. I felt that there were times, like I said, that he should have been more like just coming out, yelling, screaming at the umpires, and it just wasn't working. Nothing that he was doing was working. And I know one thing. When they finally traded Scherzer and Verlander and the rest of the guys that they traded, you saw the sort of... he was very disappointed. You could see that he looked at this team as his last chance to win a World Series. And I think he kind of saw that and realized that he had his last shot. And that was it. I kind of saw that in Kansas City when they were in Kansas City and he was talking about it. I felt, and I think a lot of people felt, that he probably saw his mortality as a manager, possibly going into the Hall of Fame, went out the window. Now, I've been trying to figure out, and then, I would mention, the team did play much better. They played 500 the last 2 months. They were very professional the last 2 months. I thought that the veterans here were very positive. He was very positive over the last 2 months as manager of this team. I never felt in the 2 years he was here like I felt when Mickey Callaway was manager and when Louis Rojas was manager. This was a professional manager. This wasn't a guy on his first job. This wasn't a guy too busy going ding, 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 texting women all day trying to get a date. He was focused in on the Mets winning. That was never an issue, but I did feel that some of that fire had changed a lot in 2023 from last year. Now, who's going to manage the Mets for next year? Well, we know who the big candidate is going to be. But I was reading an article just came out by John Heyman. And he mentioned another name, which I never thought of. I hadn't thought of it. I was like, I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him if it was my choice. Obviously, the first choice that we're going to constantly hear about him, is the Milwaukee Brewers manager, Craig Counsell. His resume speaks for itself. He's been to the postseason a lot with the Milwaukee Brewers. They won the division a lot there. He's an extremely successful manager. But it's Milwaukee. It's a small market. It is not New York. That is my only apprehension. If the Mets hire him, do they hire him? Can he handle being here in New York? I also feel that way about David Stearns, but I will say David is from New York. He's from Queens, I think. And he had worked for the Mets, so he kind of has an idea of the terrain here to a certain degree. But Craig Counsell's been in the Midwest. He obviously managed the Brewers. He played for the Brewers. He played for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's been a Midwest kind of guy, and it is tough here. Let's be honest. And it's not easy being a Met. It's not easy being a Mets fan here. The media treat the Mets like garbage. And that is something that he has to... Is he going to be able to handle that? I don't know. Now, the other guy that was mentioned in this article by John Heyman is Dusty Baker. Let me tell you, obviously he's a Hall of Fame manager. He basically stamped his name and etched his name in stone to go to Cooperstown now with that Super Bowl, that World Series win last year against the Phillies. But I guess there's a lot of sort of question marks about whether he's going to return to Houston next year, and obviously with his age. Now that's the only drawback about Dusty. He's old. He's older than Buck. But Dusty could handle here in New York. He could handle the situation. He knows how to handle superstars. He managed Barry Bonds for a long time. If you can manage Barry Bonds and make him one of the great players in the history of baseball, you can manage here in New York. But these are the names we're going to be hearing a lot about. Now, I would mention, to finish up this video, I am very concerned about the sort of revolving door of managers that have been coming in here over the last 6 years. I mean, really, since Terry Collins retired, we've had Mickey Callaway. This is from 2017, so 7 seasons. We've had Mickey Callaway. You know, Mickey. You know, Mickey. Then we had Carlos Beltran, who didn't last long. He didn't even make spring training. Then we had Luis Rojas, who had like no pulse in the dugout. And now we've had Buck Showalter come in. Of the 4 of them, Buck was the most successful. But you have 4 guys over the last 6 years now. And I know we've had ownership change, but I would mention this. Since 2017, the Yankees have had 1 manager, and the Mets have had 4 managers. That is a concern for me in terms of this revolving door. You need stability with the manager. Obviously, they'll start to get some stability here with David Stearns coming in here. I would assume he's going to get I think they said he was going to get a 5-year deal. And Epler's been here. But the manager is really the face of this team, is the face of the front office. They've got to find, and that's the one drawback about bringing in Dusty. You bring in Dusty, maybe sign to a 2-year deal. Then eventually the Mets will have to bring in somebody else. That's the one thing about Craig Counsell that interests me, is that he's younger. So that is an issue for me as a fan that concerns me in terms of sort of the stability of this franchise. But a lot is going to transpire between now. I would think between now and the end of the playoffs. I mean, the end of the we're just going to have to wait. I'm sure there'll be names popping up, the same kind of cast of characters you'll be hearing. Joe Espada, Walt Weiss. Oh, Walt Weiss here. He's a failure in Colorado. I wouldn't touch him. And Espada's been a candidate for years. I don't want him. But they have to find a guy that's got experience, that is a better choice, equal to Buck or better than Buck. And I think obviously Counsell and Baker are on that level. So, but let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut 2. Hit that subscribe button. We have plenty of videos here, not only on the Mets, the Yankees, WFAN, the fan, and of course on Major League Baseball. Thank you. Have a good day, and I'll see you later.